Okay, it's 1 minute past 1:30, so it's time to get going. Welcome to our ACDC coaching webinar. I am Caitlin Ziegler, Director at GRIST and your MC for today. And I'm joined with me from GRIST is also our Senior Behaviour Analyst, Kate Golby, who will be helming the bulk of the discussion today, and our resident psychology expert, Stacey Makshakova. Now, we also have a special guest for you today who we'll introduce to you in a moment, a real life coach and leader. But before we do that, I just want to give you a little bit of an introduction into ACDC and GRIST and what we do. So at GRIST, we develop and use micro-behavioural conversation frameworks like ACDC to help leaders really pinpoint what they could do differently and get insights how they can better achieve better outcomes from their conversations. So ACDC is a broad tactical leadership model, but really focused in on getting the most out of your coaching conversations. So in our past webinars, we've taken a really in-depth look at the 20 micro-behaviours that make up the 4 phases of our ACDC Tactical Leadership model. For those of you who are joining us and are using our GIST platform, you'll be very familiar with these micro-behaviours and these phases. But if this is your first time joining us and the first time you've seen ACDC, fear not. It's a really simple model and it's a behavioural framework, which means it has a structure for your leadership conversations that also allows you to coach in your own style. Each phase that you see on screen has 5 micro-behaviours under it. And when these are demonstrated, they really ensure that your coaching conversations are effective in driving real behavioural change and tangible performance outcomes. So what are micro-behaviours, you might ask at this point? It's like the name suggests, micro-behaviours are teeny tiny little behaviours that you can see someone do or hear them say. And crucially, they're observable, they're assessable, they're 100% in control of the individual demonstrating them, they're repeatable, and they're predictive of outcome. And when I say they're predictive of outcome, what I mean by that is that, for example, ACDC's micro-behaviours are designed to target the 20 key moments that will really drive change most effectively with your coachee. So when we define a conversation at this micro level and put this kind of structure, this behavioural structure to it, it means we can conduct all kinds of really accurate self-assessments about our coaching sessions and what they actually look and sound like. And we can get really targeted about what's missing out of them. We can also calibrate, which is what we are here to do today. Now, last night's webinar, we looked at a common coaching problem, the coachee that wants to tackle change but doesn't know how to. And we looked at which ACDC micro-behaviours you could target as a coach to really tackle this issue with your coachee. Now, today we're looking at another common coaching problem, which Kate will take you through in a second. Kate is also going to chat to a master ACDC coach about how they've tackled that problem and then dive into some specific ACDC micro-behaviours that could mitigate it. We're going to calibrate on a real life coaching conversation, and then there'll be time for questions at the end as well. So please, as we go through the webinar, any questions that you have, pop them into the chat and we'll get to those questions at the end of the sessions after we've calibrated as well. So that's probably enough from me. Kate, please take it away. What is the coaching problem we're tackling today?
Thanks, Caitlin. Thanks for that. Look, for those of you who aren't familiar, like Caitlin said, each installment, we're going to be taking you through a new problem coaching point. And today's coaching problem point is the I'm not doing that team member. So the best way to describe this kind of coachee is that they're just resistant to change. And I'm sure many of you will have had an experience with someone like this before. So I guess, I don't know about you, but I'm keen to hear some firsthand experience and some stories from our featured coach, Andrew White from NIB, and get some insight into his approach to tackling this type of coachee. So a little bit about Andrew before I bring him in. Andrew's been at NIB for 6 years with previous experience and background in retail and in teaching. Beginning as a sales consultant for NIB, he had a really clear goal of moving into a leadership role where he'd be able to flex his coaching muscles. But currently in the role of a performance lead within the service area, Andrew achieved a mastery ranking in the GRIST coaching benchmark in June this year. He's eager to use his coaching skills to expand his skill set into coaching fellow coaches to help them develop their consultants in their current role and beyond. So we're excited to have him along to share some of his wisdoms. Hi, Andrew. How are you?
I'm brilliant, Kate. How are you?
Yeah, I'm great. Thank you. Thanks
Good.
for joining us today.
No, anytime. Thanks for having me.
Great. So look, Andrew, I understand you've got again, tell us a little bit about some of your experience with this coaching conundrum that I'm not doing that coachee. So tell us a little bit about, your experience there.
Yeah, for sure. I've run into this plenty of times during my tenure as a coach with a variety of different consultants. But I thought today I'd probably talk about a particular situation where I've run into this recently. Nice and fresh in my mind, so I can give you all the best information possible. So I was in this situation. I was coaching a very tenured agent here at NIB. They've been here longer than I have, and the behaviour we were coaching on within their calls was recapping before moving on and providing the customer a resolution or a solution. Initially, this consultant was really engaged in this coaching session and really bought in well when discussing the current state and the potential impact on member outcomes. However, when we moved into the buy-in around desired state, the consultant stated, doing this feels like, do you want fries with that? And I'm working at McDonald's, which in this instance, it completely derailed the goal setting component of the coaching session, which was evident in the consultant's tone and how they interacted while we were setting those goals. And the massive impact that had was that the behavior wasn't adapted on calls moving forward, and any goal that we set wasn't achieved in that following check-in time that we set following that initial session.
So you really lost them, yeah. And so
totally.
Looking back, after you'd left the session and you were having a bit of a reflection on it, can you pinpoint, where it was that you think you lost them?
Yeah, so I was very fortunate enough to record this coaching session. So I knew as soon as the session was over that I'd lost them at some point. And I didn't want to get caught up in the heat of the moment and just make assumptions. So I just jumped in and had a listen to the session 24 hours later. And assessing it, the buy-in didn't resonate with the consultant at all when it came to desired state, as it focused on member impact. While the consultants wanting to ensure they have a good member experience, they didn't recognise the what's in it for them.
Yeah, so getting that buy-in, I guess, really as to why they need to change is like, it's so dependent to get them motivated, right?
Yeah.
And so how did you approach that?
Yeah, for sure. So I thought about, and after reviewing the session, I really dug deep and thought about what drives this consultant to get out of bed in the morning, get out of their PJs and jump to their desk, whether that be working at home or in an office. And thinking about this particular consultant, she really loves her time that she spends with her nephew. And she wants to be able to do whatever he wants to do without saying no. She wants to be the fun auntie, right? So I replanned the entire session with a new call that linked to the same behavior, but reevaluated some questions to add to that, which linked back to the consultant's motivation to create buy-in. The impact of this was the coaching session went the complete opposite way this time around. The agent really bought into seeing, what was in it for them and what impact it's going to have on their personal life and on their individual motivation. Because I linked it back to her quarterly bonus, which we pay based on some KPIs like NPS and first call resolution. And I linked it back to those scores to really highlight, if she did this, how it's going to drive her performance and her KPIs and how it's going to drive that money into her bank account so she can be that fun auntie. The longer term impacts of this have been is the consultant's now consistently implementing this behavior on her calls and really understands the link about what this little behavior will do for her and really fulfill their why of like I said, getting out of bed in the morning.
Yeah, so it's about sort of drawing those links, isn't it, and connecting the dots, I suppose.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, great. That's been wonderful to get some insight into just a specific example. Often we hear about sort of coaching in much broader terms, but to hear a specific example of how you turned this individual coachee around, it's great to hear that kind of perspective.
Yeah, for sure.
Thank you very much. Okay, now to give us, I guess, a little bit of a broader context as to why this approach might work, we're going to talk to our resident psychology expert, Stacey Machkova. Stacey, how does this, like the field of psychology, explain why linking back to a consultant's goal is so impactful?
Yeah, well, Kate, I think that the best explanation comes from the self-determination theory of motivation, and it actually gained quite a lot of support from practice. And basically what it tells us is that we people have three fundamental psychological needs. One is the need for autonomy, where we want to do things because we want to, not because they've been forced upon us. We also want to feel competent, and that's another need, where we want to feel like we have mastered things and we are being effective. And finally, we want to relate to other people. We want to feel connected and supported, which is another need that's called relatedness. So in Andrew's case, I see that it's the best example of autonomy. So when he was able to show his consultant how working on this behavior could help her to be this fun auntie and engage with her nephew, he helped her feel like she was in control, that she was working on it because she wanted to, and not because Andrew was forcing her to do that.
Yeah, perfect. And so the other two components, the competence and the relatedness, can they be addressed in sessions as well?
Absolutely. So when a coaching session is done right, it can help to build that competence aspect. So for instance, what a coach can do, they can role play or practice certain things with a team member. They can also make sure that the goal that they are setting is realistic and yet challenging enough. When it comes to relatedness, again, the coach can use the whole session to address that need. In the beginning, when they engage with a team member about work things and maybe some personal things, during the session, when they, let's say, empathize with them because something wasn't achieved, or reverse, when they recognize the achievements. And of course, at the end, when they set the goal, when they're showing their team member that they're there to support, to help them guide with through that goal achievement. So when a coaching is done right, it can be a very powerful tool to address motivation.
Yeah, that completely makes sense, doesn't it? Yeah, thanks, Stacey. I think understanding this can really assist coaches when tackling sessions like this, just to give them that broader reason why. I mean, even coaches need to understand the why something works, don't they, in order to be able to implement it properly. Yeah. Okay, look, let's have a look at the ACDC micro-behaviours that are going to help us with this I'm not doing that coachee. Now, Andrew has already given us a good idea on the best behaviours to focus on. So let's now have a little bit of a review of those. Okay, we're going to begin with the discuss, link, current state phase. So it's about connecting those dots that we just talked about. It's really important to complete the picture. So if a team member doesn't understand the logic behind doing or not doing a behaviour, they're less likely that they're going to buy in to actually wanting to change it. And finding that motivation helps team members see and understand how their current behaviours are influencing current outcomes. And then we move into the buy-in of that current state phase. So gauging how incentivized that team member is before proceeding gives an opportunity to amplify it, or even to clarify anything that's maybe missing. And by not doing that check-in, the coach they don't really know whether or not the team member has bought into the spiel. Possibly, that could result in just kind of lackluster participation in, a practice or workshopping exactly what to do to change. This should be done really by asking a very clear question, something like, okay, well, should we work on that today? Something that it can't be misinterpreted, and it's very much asking for that team member to buy into it. Then we move into discuss link in the desired state phase. So again, connecting those dots to ensure team members understand how the behavioural change is going to get them closer to that target goal that they desire. So knowing why it makes it more compelling to do a certain behaviour more often makes sense. So discussing and collaborating with a team member around that link in the session creates a logical, tangible recipe for team members to follow, and it reinforces the idea that a desired outcome is achievable, and it needs to be a simple behavioural change to get there. And you'll see a pretty familiar pattern coming up here. We're going to look at the buy-in in the desired state phase here as well. So again, looking for a team member to commit to working on a behaviour moving forward. Check-ins to make sure the team member is willing to demonstrate that new behaviour in the future, and willing to set goals around it. Encourages the team member to take ownership over the developmental journey, and that desired state buy-in creates a bridge between the discussion about the behaviours and results and the discussion about the goals. So understanding the difference between that current state, the discuss link current and the buy-in current, and the desired state, the discuss link desired and the buy-in desired, is all about the context that you're talking about it in the conversation. So current state, all about what's currently happening and what is already happening in their behaviour. And the desired is what we want to see in the future. So if that all makes sense, we're going to test your skills and do some calibration. So what I'm going to do is play you a little audio snippet here. Here we've got a recording of the current state and the desired state here. And for those of you who haven't taken part in one of our live calibration sessions before, grab a pen and paper so you can make any notes that you want to, even if it's just a ticket across when you hear or don't hear a behaviour. And what we'll do is, after the recording's finished, it's quite a short one today, so after it's finished, I'll get you to get your annotation tools and let me know what you heard on the screen. But for the moment, while we're listening to the recording, just keep it on your pen and paper for now, so we're not giving anything away. All right, let's go.
Okay, so summarising their needs before we jump into the solution. Can you see how not summarising is impacting your conversations?
Yeah, actually, I can see it now. It can lead me to misinterpreting what they've said or forgetting something that they mentioned earlier and then giving them the wrong solution. Well, not wrong, but maybe not the best one. And that's probably not going to get me the sale.
Exactly. Well, I think summarising understanding will be a great focus for us this session.
You're the boss.
All right, so what's the desired result of our discover and understand phase?
Making customers happy.
Yeah, that's sort of right. Are you okay? You seem a little bit distracted.
Oh, sorry, I just zoned out. Yeah, back with you now.
No, that's all right. Not long left. So back to the summary. If we summarise well at the end of the phase, how does that get us closer to that ideal outcome?
Well, we can't give them the wrong solution because we have all the right information.
And the right solution can lead us to?
Conversions.
Beautiful. So what do you say? Is the summarising understanding something that you want to set a goal around?
Yeah, whatever you reckon.
Okay, so there's our little coaching session, a little tiny snippet of our coaching session. Grab your annotation tool. It should be in your little toolbar there. Just a little picture or anything, grab the pen there and just let me know what you heard. Little tick next to the ones you heard, maybe a cross and something that you thought was missing. I want to get a bit of an idea what you're hearing in that session. Okay, we got a few people hearing the discuss links, both in the current and the desired phase. Okay, all right. People with that buy-in in the current state's got a cross next to it. Okay, fantastic. All right, good, wonderful. Okay, what I'll do is I'll clear that off now. And because that was quite a concise audio recording, it was pretty jam-packed with information in there. We're going to listen to the whole thing again, and this time I'll display a transcript of what we're hearing, and then I'll pop up exactly where those behaviours are occurring and not occurring as we go through. Oh, all right, here we go. Sorry, guys.
Okay, so summarising their needs before we jump into the solution. Can you see how not summarising is impacting your conversations?
Yeah, actually, I can see it now. It can lead me to misinterpreting what they've said or forgetting something that they mentioned earlier and then giving them the wrong solution. Well, not wrong, but maybe not the best one. And that's probably not going to get me the sale.
Exactly. Well, I think summarising understanding will be a great focus for us this session.
You're the boss.
All right, so what's the desired result of our discover and understand phase?
Making customers happy.
Yeah, that's sort of right. Are you okay? You seem a little bit distracted.
Oh, sorry, I just zoned out. Yeah, back with you now.
No, that's all right. Not long left. So back to the summary. If we summarise well at the end of the phase, how does that get us closer to that ideal outcome?
Well, we can't give them the wrong solution because we have all the right information.
And the right solution can lead us to?
Conversions.
Beautiful. So what do you say? Is the summarising understanding something that you want to set a goal around?
Yeah, whatever you reckon.
Okay, so it sounds like we were right on the ball there with those discuss links. They were both there. The coach was really helping to draw those connections for the team member and really including them in the process, and asking follow-up questions when they didn't get the responses that they wanted straight away. That's exactly what we want to hear. We want to hear coaches continue to push team members to come to those conclusions on their own. And with those buy-ins, you can see how the two buy-ins didn't quite satisfy that intention of the micro-behaviour in two different ways, actually. It was really good to see how first we heard the coach make an executive decision about the area of focus when he said, I think we should work on this, not involving the team member at all. There was no buy-in at all, just you're the boss. So that's certainly not what we want to hear when we're moving on to that desired state phase. And then when we listen to the buy-in for the desired state, he asked a question about but the team member just was clearly unmotivated, and it's unlikely that they would see any real change from this level of coaching enthusiasm. Something like, what was it? Yeah, whatever you reckon. So if you get that kind of response from your team member, it's really a great opportunity to go back and discuss the behaviour and outcomes again and try and find their motivation rather than pushing through to your goal setting and really not get any great results post session. So go back in, try and find that motivation while you're still in that coaching session. Well, thank you all for your participation in that live calibration. It's great to see all your responses, and I hope you've acquired a few new tips there to help in your coaching. I'm going to hand you back over to Caitlin, and she's going to take you through how you can continue to practice and improve your coaching, and then jump into some questions. Take it away, Caitlin.
Great. Thanks, Kate. I appreciate that. And great calibration there. Good example. I love listening to these. And we should say they are real life coaching conversations. We have re-recorded them so the actual coaches are not put on the spot with their with any of that, but we do re-record real actual life coaching conversations so you get a big picture of what it is that we're calibrating against and what's happening. I do have a question, and it's actually for Andrew. Andrew, you mentioned when I was listening to you go through your process at assessing that coaching conversation, you mentioned you listened back to your coaching session to assess where you were going wrong. Can you tell us a little bit about how that sort of assessment helps your own development as a coach?
I think for myself, it's an important part of pushing myself forward. Even if a coaching session went really well, I want to know why. You know, we put all this time into planning them and setting them up for success, but it's been a critical step for me over the last 6 months to really take that time to assess my coaching sessions and go, okay, well, what went well? Or if something didn't quite go so well, the same thing, why didn't that go well and what can I change? It's like setting micro behaviors for our consultant, but setting micro behavior goals for myself to really drive that successful outcomes for me in my coaching.
I love that. And how painful is it to listen to your own voice in a coaching course? I know I find it really hard to listen to myself back.
Yeah, I struggle. I tend to increase the speed on the recording so I sound like a chipmunk.
Yeah, I love that. That's a good tip. That's a good tip. If you can't stand it, just to increase the speed and sound like a chipmunk anyway. And we've done some calibration today. So Andrew, is that something that you do as a leader? Do you calibrate your coaching conversations?
Yeah, I calibrate with my direct leader, and we also at NIB have a fortnightly session when we get together as leaders and calibrate on a coaching session, or on a call and talk about how we would coach it together. So we're sharing best practice and making sure that we're taking on board different ideas and setting each other up for success.
I love that. That's so good to hear. And thank you again, Andrew, for being on today.
No, thank you very much for having me. I appreciate it.
Great. Well, now we've moved to that time of the webinar where I'm going to give you a very, very quick 1-minute overview of our GIST platform. So for those of you who are familiar with GIST, feel free to jump off because you will have seen this before. You'll be very familiar with it. But for those who haven't, here's a very quick look at how you can learn ACDC and the ACDC model and all the micro behaviours online. So our GIST platform takes you through the whole ACDC coaching model. You can learn the phases and the micro behaviours all through really short, sharp, funny videos that we have a whole bunch of different comedians demonstrating what those micro behaviours are. And then these are cemented through anchoring activities and then applying your skill in real life and those sort of self-assessments where you're listening to yourself back so you can do that calibration and assessment to really aid your development. I think you can see what the assessment looks like here. And it's this assessment that is really, really key with this platform. You can assess that coaching, and like we've done today, you can get other people to assess, you can listen back, you can start to calibrate and see where those behaviours are missing out of your coaching conversations and what you can actually do to close those gaps. So this means that as you learn and assess, you can get a really clear picture about what you're doing consistently and where there are areas of opportunity. And as Andrew said very succinctly before, it just gives him a picture of what micro behaviour, what is he working on? He's asking his team to work on micro behaviours of how they're improving their conversations. What is he working on to improve his? And this is one way of looking at how you can do that. So that is our GIST platform. Now, that is all that we have for today. If you did want to learn more about our GIST platform, the contact details are on screen. Please get in contact with us. We would love to hear from you. But I really want to say a huge thank you to Kate and Stacey, our experts and hosts for today. And again, an extra special thank you to our guest leader and master ACDC coach, Andrew from NIB. Really appreciate you being on and sharing your insights as a coach in a real life scenario and getting really into that nitty gritty of what you can do differently. Thank you for all of you out there for joining us, and I hope you've enjoyed our discussion today. We really look forward to seeing you next time, which next month will be tackling another coaching problem. So until then, we'll see you.